Hi again, Kevin Pollock here with Prince William County's Office of Historic Preservation, coming to you on August 29th, 2021, part 6 of our 159th anniversary commemorative video series commemorating the battle and campaign of Second Manassas. I'm standing here along the unfinished railroad cut. You might be able to see some of the bank behind me on Manassas National Battlefield, just off of Featherbed Lane. And this unfinished railroad cut and the ground off to my right that became known as Stoney Ridge was where Stonewall Jackson's command ensconced itself and made defensive positions throughout August 28th and then into the morning of August 29th as well. So, on the morning of August 29th, John Pope, commander of the Army of Virginia, has finally located Stonewall Jackson's command that he had been trying to find for the last day or so, and he finally found them when Jackson attacked troops of Rufus King's division at Bronner's Farm on the evening of August 29th, kicking off officially the Battle of Second Manassas, or Second Bull Run. Pope then believed that he had hatched a great and stellar plan with which to trap or destroy Jackson's command before Jackson and Longstreet could reunite. Now, John Pope believed that Jackson and Longstreet's commands would not reunite for at least another 24 to 48 hours. In fact, however, by early morning of August 29th, Jackson's and Longstreet's commands reunited about a mile or so behind the camera in the area of where Bronner's Farm is ultimately today. So Pope had a very unclear picture of what Jackson's line was like and what the situation was like on August 29th itself. So John Pope's plan for August 29th was to stage attacks against Jackson's left flank in this area, the unfinished railroad cut, and the area around Sudley Church, while portions of his army and portions of the Army of the Potomac that had joined Pope's army under the command of Irvin McDowell and Fitzjohn Porter, respectively, were supposed to move up the Manassas-Gainesville Road, essentially today's modern Wellington Road, in the direction of Gainesville and strike at what Pope believed would be Jackson's right flank and rear end of his line. In the meantime, while Porter was moving into position and McDowell were moving into position, Pope would stage attacks against Jackson's left here, again at Sudley Church, as a way to keep the Confederates' attention fixed in this area and away from Porter and McDowell. Pope's attacks began early on the morning of August 29th, several hundred yards behind me. Those first attacks were under the command of Franz Sigel, commanding the 1st Corps of the Army of Virginia. And then as the day continued on, and Pope continued to wait for Porter's attack against Jackson's right and rear in the area of Gainesville that never actually came to fruition, Pope continued to stage attacks against Jackson's line here in the unfinished railroad. A couple of times, Pope's men came increasingly close. In fact, just a few hundred yards behind me, in this area on the early afternoon of August 29th, a brigade of New Englanders, about 1,500 men, under the command of Cuvier Grover, staged a bayonet attack, piercing Jackson's line temporarily before, without support, ultimately being thrown back. In the area in front of me, shortly thereafter, a brigade of the Union 9th Corps, under the command of James Noggle, also had temporary success against Jackson's line, but once again, without support, they were thrown back. By 4:30 p.m., Pope had issued another order to Fitzjohn Porter, unequivocally telling Porter to attack. However, by the time it reached Porter on the left end of Pope's line, it was 6:30 in the evening, and Porter was not in a position to attack, especially because he now had portions of James Longstreet's command out in front of him. But in conjunction with what Pope believed would be Porter's attack there on August 29th, Pope staged one of the largest attacks, in fact, the largest Union attack of August 29th, and that was under the command of Phil Kearny, a very hot-headed fighting general of the Army of the Potomac. Kearny's 2,700 men lunged forward at about 5 p.m. on August 29th, once again piercing Jackson's line, pushing some of Jackson's men to the breaking point. Jackson had to draw reserves from other portions of his line to ultimately help repel Kearny's attack against the left end and center of Jackson's line. Then later on that evening, John Pope, believing that his attacks had succeeded, believing the Confederates were about to withdraw towards the west, towards the Bull Run Mountains along the Warrenton Turnpike, modern Route 29 today, Pope issued pursuit orders along the Warrenton Turnpike. Those federal troops engaged in a twilight clash in the area of Groveton with some of James Longstreet's Confederates. And finally, by sunset of August 29th, The sun had set on these multiple Union attacks and Confederate defenses of the unfinished railroad cut and Stoney Ridge area. While this was a day-long set of actions here on the just north of the Old Manassas or Bull Run battlefield, ultimately Pope's objectives had not been successful. He had not driven the Confederates from the field despite what he thought. But he continued to think that he had more time before Jackson's and Longstreet's wings of the Confederate Army reunited, and Pope would be back at it the next morning looking for ultimate victory in this campaign, now with the two armies just about 25 miles outside of Washington, D.C. So continue to join us tomorrow and follow us on all of our social media pages, especially Facebook and YouTube, where we'll be posting other videos about our commemorative anniversary video series about the 159th anniversary of the campaign and Battle of Second Manassas.